Despite an increasing consumer demand for organic produce in Texas, there are still very few commercial organic growers in the Lone Star State. According to a 2016 report by the National Center for Appropriate Technology, Texas consumers spend more than $1 billion per year on organic food, but only a tiny percentage of that is grown within the state. PPC Farms, located in Mission, Texas, is one organic specialty crop grower that has made it its mission to lead the South Texas agricultural industry in organic crop production. Working with Dr. Alexis Rosselis of the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, PPC Farms is seen as a pioneer in sustainable practices and market development. PPC Farms has been a member of the Subtropical Organic Agricultural Research Partnership since its founding in 2013. As part of its transition to organic production, PPC Farms has implemented integrated pest management and has adopted water and soil conservation practices. In an attempt to develop additional commercial crops suitable for South Texas, PPC Farms recently conducted a trial of sweet potato production with funding provided by USDA's Southern SARA Producer Grant Program. If sweet potatoes can be grown successfully in South Texas, this will add to the number of organically grown products in this region, boosting crop diversity and income potential. PPC Farms also hopes to demonstrate that organic sweet potato production could extend the growing season into the hot summer. The sweet potato originated in the tropical Americas and was grown extensively throughout the continent well before the arrival of Europeans. Explorers introduced the sweet potato to Europe, Africa, and Asia, and it is now one of the major root crops in the developing world. In the tropics, sweet potatoes can be grown as a perennial, while in temperate regions it is grown as an annual. Mission, Texas, where the U.S. trial took place, is in USDA Hardiness Zone 9B. It is situated in Ecoregion 34E, Lower Rio Grande Valley. The average first frost in this area happens between December 21st and December 31st. The average last frost happens between the 21st and 31st of January. This zone usually sees between 181 to 210 days over 86 degrees. Sweet potatoes need 90 to 150 days of frost-free temperatures to produce harvestable roots. In theory, the crop can be grown in South Texas starting in February all the way through November. Sweet potatoes grow best in well-draining, loamy soils, which result in larger, well-shaped roots. Sweet potatoes grown in heavy clay soils or in soils with high organic matter can result in rough, irregular roots. PPC Farms chose a sandy loam field that was organically certified as the location of its trial. Sweet potatoes do not require a lot of nitrogen fertility, but they do require significant potassium and phosphorus. The test field had very high amounts of potassium and phosphorus with extremely low levels of nitrates. The pH of the soil was 8.2, which is significantly higher than the recommended range of 6.0 to 6.8. 300 pounds per acre of sulfur was added to half the plot as a soil amendment. 2-row discs were used to form raised beds. 8-inch ridges were created to improve drainage and root quality. Soil was plowed and disked to prepare a fine planting bed. Each bed was 40 inches wide. The sweet potato slips were planted 12 inches apart. Slips are shoots containing some roots which are pulled from growing plants. Sweet potatoes are grown from these slips, which had to be purchased outside of Texas because there were not any organic sweet potato slips available locally. 2,000 slips each of Beauregard, Georgia Jet, and Cummington varieties were purchased from the Steel Plant Company in Tennessee. The Beauregard variety was chosen because it promised the highest yield potential. In Kentucky, yields have surpassed 500 boxes per acre. The Beauregard sweet potato matures in 90 to 95 days. It has copper red skin with orange flesh and is the most commonly grown variety. Georgia Jet promises great taste but may crack, negatively affecting its yield potential. It has bright orange flesh and red skin. Covington is a variety developed by a scientist at North Carolina State University. It promised the highest quality, but with lower yield potential than Beauregard. Yield is estimated at 400 boxes per acre. It has rose-colored skin with orange flesh and reaches maturity in 100 days. The slips arrived in ventilated cardboard boxes. They were bunched, with their roots wrapped in wax paper before shipping. The delivery from Tennessee to Mission took 4 days via UPS. Once the slips arrived, they were separated into different varieties. Using a tomato transplanter, the slips were sown in single rows 12 inches apart, as recommended by the supplier. It is recommended that sweet potato slips be planted at a depth of 3 inches with no less than 2 plant nodes in the ground and leaving at least 2 leaves or more above the ground. Once all the slips were transplanted, the rows were irrigated through flood irrigation method. Proper irrigation improves slip establishment. Irrigation of sweet potatoes need not be as frequent as for other vegetable crops, but it is helpful during bulking stages. Excessive irrigation will cause splitting and cracking. PPC Farms applied 1 inch of water every 10 days throughout the growing process. Sweet potatoes are an aggressive crop that can quickly form a canopy, shading out weeds. Because production was organic, PPC Farms did not apply any herbicide, but relied instead on manual cultivation. Some of the weeds that infiltrated the fields included sunflowers and silverleaf nightshade. Pheromone insect traps were put out monthly to collect data on above-ground insects. Common pests for sweet potatoes in other southern growing regions are flea beetles, tortoise beetles, leafhoppers, and sweet potato weevils. Soil-borne insect pests are the most serious insect pests. The main culprits are wireworms and grubs. Samples of the roots were taken periodically to monitor for their presence. PPC Farms encountered some unforeseen problems during the harvest. The farm had never produced sweet potatoes, nor were there any commercial growers nearby. Therefore, it was difficult to get access to a mechanical harvester. PPC ultimately located an old potato chain digger for the job. The roots were tough, requiring 2 tractors to pull the harvester, but the chain digger was able to pull up some of the sweet potatoes, exposing them for manual gathering. Still, the borrowed chain digger was old and inadequate to harvest all the sweet potatoes. Where the roots were especially strong, the metal bars on the digger broke. This problem was most noticeable with the roots where the Muraski variety were planted. The Muraski roots were rope-like and very tough, not producing any edible sizes. 2 weeks of rainfall also hampered the harvest, leaving the fields too wet to enter. When harvesting resumed, PPC Farms discovered that a large group of feral hogs had attacked the partially harvested field, consuming both the uprooted sweet potatoes as well as those still in the ground. At this point, PPC Farms determined that proper harvesting was not possible, including calculation of yield. These unforeseen events did not allow PPC Farms to gather information regarding curing, storage, grading, and marketing. Is the sweet potato suitable as a perennial crop in South Texas? After the hogs destroyed its test crops, PPC Farms did not disc the fields, hoping that the vines would continue to produce something. However, by October, there was no new leaf production, and by December, the field had completely turned brown. Therefore, it has been determined that sweet potatoes are not a viable perennial crop in South Texas. Fortunately, the test production received quite a bit of attention from farmers and researchers since it was a rare attempt at commercial-sized production of sweet potatoes in South Texas. Texas Department of Agriculture has since approached PPC Farms to discuss exporting organic sweet potatoes to Europe. The slips were shared with other farmers at the transplant demonstration, and some farmers have planted the slips manually at their farms. Several researchers approached PPC Farms to collaborate with them for pest research, nutritional content, and sweet potatoes as cover crops. The key takeaways for PPC Farms were as follows. Local slip production is imperative to avoid rain during harvest time. March to April is the ideal planting time for South Texas. A mechanical harvester is needed before jumping into production, as manual harvesting is not feasible for commercial production. While not suitable as a perennial crop, annual summertime production of organic sweet potatoes is definitely possible in South Texas, allowing product availability for local growers, meeting local needs for fresh local produce. We hope future studies and research will build upon this trial to make commercial production of organic sweet potatoes in South Texas a possibility in the near future.